Hello, good day, and welcome to another episode of Energy Explained, where we'll be talking about state market design and the key players. Recently, Nigeria has seen the decentralization of electricity markets with the constitutional amendment, with the enactment of the State Electricity Act that provides the process for transitioning from national regulation to state regulation. And so the states that have exercised the option, to create their own state electricity markets are now going through a process, developing policies, enacting their own laws, and taking different steps. And one of the major steps that a state must think about is the design of its market. So, truly, the electricity markets in the states are not really greenfield. I mean, they're not fresh, meaning that there are already operators existing within those markets. So it's like a brownfield market. It's not a greenfield where, it's totally new players that come. No, this is a brownfield market which had existed, but which was regulated at the center. Now we have a market at the state. How does it transform, from being nationally and centrally regulated to regulated by the state? We've talked about that in a previous episode. Now, for the market design, who are the key players? Who are the key players in the state and what would they do? Key player number one is the Ministry of Energy. It's called different names by different states. Some states call it the Ministry of Energy. Some call it Ministry of, Petroleum Resources, Energy and Petroleum Resources, Energy and Mineral Resources. So different names. However, it's the ministry that is in charge of energy and ensuring that the energy goals and objectives of the states are achieved. So that's the state ministry. And the responsibility is to ensure that the energy program of the government is being driven in the desired direction towards the desired goal. This ministry is overseen usually by a commissioner, the Commissioner for Energy, who is on the executive council of the state and reports directly to the governor. And so within the Ministry of Energy, there's a framing, of the goal and the vision. Where does the state want to be, and by when? This information will be found in the state electricity policy. The next key player in the state electricity market is undoubtedly the state electricity regulator, which has a responsibility to develop the electricity market in conjunction with the State Ministry of Energy. So while the Ministry of Energy is responsible for policy, the State Electricity Regulatory Commission, the SERC, is responsible for regulation, creating a market, ensuring competition, supervising operators, providing regulations. The regulator has a huge responsibility, I must tell you, and in coordinating all the players to ensure that everybody is going in the same direction, and that is the desired direction. The next key player is the State Electrification Agency. Previously, they were called Rural Electrification Agency, Rural Electrification Board, but we've seen a change, in that name to not rural electrification boards or rural electrification agencies of the states, but they're calling them electrification agency because it has not that dichotomy between urban and rural has not really helped, because even in urban areas they don't have 100% energy access except in very few places. I think I remember a place in Aba that has 100%, Abia State has 100% energy access, and 24/7 power. So the State Electrification Agency is that agency of government that is responsible for, the electrification plan, coordinating the electrification plan of the government. And that electrification plan, some states within their laws have provided for the development of an electrification plan, which takes feedback from the different local governments on the states of energy access, on the unserved, the number of unserved customers, the number of served customers, in order to develop a robust plan that will be used for a systematic electrification of the state. So this agency, oftentimes has a fund, an electrification funds that allows it to receive funds, from different, types of funding agencies for the purpose of accelerating the electrification of the state. So you have the state electrification agency as the third key player. Other key players on the side of the government would be the Ministry of Environment, because power has an impact. Generating electricity, transmitting electricity, distributing electricity has an impact on the environment. And to ensure that it doesn't have a negative impact, is properly controlled, you would have the involvement of the State Ministry of Environment. The next agency that is very important is the Ministry of Water Resources. And you're like, okay, water. What does water have to do with? Well, water has to, where there is going to be power through using water. So if you're going to do any hydro generation, the Ministry of Water Resources within the state must be involved. This is another key player. Another one, yet another key player on the side of the state, is the Ministry of Justice. And you're like, justice? What does justice have to do? I'll tell you. Within the state electricity laws, usually there's a provision for electricity related offenses. Because yes, some people will commit offenses. Yeah, that's the norm. And so when they commit offenses, there should be there are provisions within the law that have stated the punishments that will come, that are associated with those offenses, whether imprisonment, whether fines, whatever is the judicial, what the law has said should be applied to such offenses. There must be an agency that enforces it. So the Ministry of Justice has a role to play. What of the court system? The judicial system also has a role to play, because it is before the magistrates, the judges in the states, that you will bring these offenders. What about the police? The police, yes, the police is the one that, because they are criminal offenses. There's some of these offenses that are criminal, some are civil, some are criminal, and so you will need to involve the police, for powers of arrest, investigation, and bringing the offender, to court, and other associated issues. For example, electricity theft. Where there's theft of electricity, needs to be investigated. You need to, the person needs to be, the charges brought against the person needs to be clear. The offender needs to be clear. So even the police has a role, to play. I remember in a previous, one of my previous roles, we set up the first task force on the enforcement on the of electricity offenses, and we worked with the police. I remember working with the police, working with civil defense, working with the Ministry of Justice in order to bring offenders, to book. So on the government side, I've listed about 7 different agencies now. But on the operator side, you have the generating companies. In that market that you're designing, just like you have, when you go to any market, they are the wholesalers, they are the manufacturers, they are the retailers, they are the traders who just arbitrage, and broker trades. There are different types of players, just like you have in a natural market. In the electricity market, you have. So you have those who produce the electricity. They are called the generators. These are the operators. So they are the ones, they are key, they are licensees. They must get a license before they generate electricity, based on in accordance with the provisions of the state electricity law. Then, of course, transmission. Transmission licenses are those that carry electricity, from the generation company at very high voltages and sell them to the distribution licensee at a lower voltage. The distribution licensee now sells to the end, now transmits that electricity to the end user like you and me. Of course, the traders, those who their business is just to buy and sell and make a margin, make a spread in between. Those are also key players in this market, because we need those that can bring liquidity into the market, buy from the generation, sell to distribution companies, and ensure that there is liquidity within the market. Distribution companies, they wheel the electricity, just like you have a transporter, somebody who is transporting for you. The distribution company's responsibility is to take the energy from the generation company and deliver it to the end user. But the transmission company is the one that does the wheeling. And so the wheeling, the distribution company takes from the transmission company. The transmission company does its wheeling of electricity at very high voltages. And then the distribution company takes it at a lower voltage and now delivers it to the end user. So that's another key player. There's this new entrant into the market called the retailers. So these retailers are the ones that actually sell the electricity to end users. Those people you buy your recharge cards from, that you buy your electricity, tokens from. These can either be the distribution company performing that dual service, or a company that is just involved in the sale of electricity. There are also mini grid developers. These mini grid developers combine both generation and distribution. So they do both. They generate electricity, that's they produce electricity, they distribute electricity, and they now sell it to the end user. So mini grid developers, at the national level, they are limited to about 1 megawatts, but some states have increased even the threshold at which mini grid operators can perform their operations. So mini grid development, they are also key players within the market. So in this market, there are multiple players, multiple operators. At the beginning, when a state moves from central regulation to state regulation, things will first remain as is, because there is no reinventing the wheel. They will continue to receive energy the way they've been doing, from the national grid. But one of the things they are concerned about is, how do I plug the energy access gap? For example, a state has, maybe the energy demand is 500 megawatts, and it's only receiving about 80 or 90 from the grid. It has 410 megawatts gap. So how is it going to plug this 410 megawatts? Where is it going to get the capacity from? So there needs to be investments along the value chain. There's also a system operator who is a key player, but that system operator role becomes important when they start to generate energy in the state, and there's need for how the energy is going to be moved from one generator to distribution points, to the national grid. So all those issues will be important for a system operator when the state begins to generate electricity. So all these parties, you can see that I've mentioned more than 10 different players within. There must be somebody coordinating it. So in having an efficient market, the regulator has a very important coordination role in ensuring that it's focused on the vision that has been set by the government, through the Ministry of Energy in the state. And each of these parties is playing their roles. The generation companies are playing their roles, transmission companies are playing their roles, the distribution companies are playing the roles, the retailers, the traders, everybody. It's sort of like a coordinated dance. It's not a haphazard. It has to be very well coordinated. Each party must know its own steps, so that at the end, the states will attain the objective of, like the example we used. How do we plug the 410 megawatts and give energy access for all to everyone within the states? This is usually done using an electrification plan, which I mentioned before, and systematic implementation of that plan. So we've been talking about state market design and the key players. Who are the people that must be at this party of electricity market development? Until I come your way again, my name is Olajumoke Deyelano. Join us for another episode of Energy Explained. Take care.